Good afternoon. Welcome to the special meeting for the County Council, August 22nd. I'm glad to see you all here. Shannon, would you be willing to lead the pledge? And I'll open in prayer. We will start today with a transfer of $2,400.20 from our council reclassification to the EIRPC line item. And the floor is open for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion to approve from Mike and a second from Shannon. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Betsy. Welcome. Yes, and I should have mentioned that Ken and Betsy are joining us over Zoom. So thank you both. Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Harold is not present today. The next item on the itinerary is to transfer $10,000 from the jail lit janitorial supplies to inmate supplies, and to transfer $50,000 from jail lit utilities to the jail maintenance line item.
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
A motion from Shannon, a second by Mike. Is there any discussion?
If I missed a message about what these were for, I apologize. Is there anything that I can glance at, or anybody tell me real quick?
Yeah, let me bring up the document 1 second. So as it sits right now, the jail maintenance line item is in the red by $9,700. And the jail utilities line item has only used 36%. So they've used 81,000 of 226, looks like. I need to zoom this so I can see what I'm looking at, but so there's $144,632.31 left in jail utilities through the end of the year, with the jail maintenance item being $9,700 in the red. That was the proposal to move $50,000 within the jail lit just from one line item to the other. The inmate supplies was budgeted at $15,000. There's $1,156 in there, and as I recall, we got an invoice that needs paid out of that. And janitorial supplies, we've only used $16,898 out of the $47,900. So that's the proposal to move $10,000 from that line item to inmate supplies.
Thank you, Shannon. Kyle, would you like us to pause briefly? No? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving this transfer signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, 6-0 passes. The next item on our itinerary is ordinance 2024-7, and this ordinance specifically repeals ordinance 2024-2. And ordinance 2024-2 called for the auditor's department to manage paying all bills from our lit funds. And this ordinance 2024-7 repeals that and says that approval of claims paid by local income taxes has created additional burdens on the operation of the auditor's office. And from here on forward, a department or office that intends to pay a claim from revenue generated by lit shall submit the claim for payment in the same manner as claims from their department or office's regular budget. And the claim will be considered a proper expenditure if the use of the lit revenue for payment of the claim is permitted by law. and the terms of any bond issuance or other indebtedness for which a particular lit is pledged. The floor is open for a motion to approve this ordinance or not.
I will say that I think we made appropriate measures in the budget for 2025 that will not have as many different departments paying out of public safety lit with the new EMS lit. That will be separate. So with that, I'll make the motion to pass this ordinance.
Second.
A motion by Shannon, a second by Kyle. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes 6-0. We're going to move the consideration of ordinance 2024-8 to the bottom of the itinerary, the bottom of our itinerary, and instead move forward to consider ordinance 2024-9, which is an ordinance providing for a hiring bonus for new hired merit deputy sheriffs and allowing prior law enforcement service to be included when determining the matrix pay. And then also ordinance 2024-10, which establishes residency pay for merit deputy sheriffs. And the reason for the change is that we had passed last time a motion that we would consider either 100% for our merit pools, or we would consider these two hiring and retention tools, or neither. And so I wanted to change the order so that all options were still on the table for the council to discuss. We can now discuss ordinance 2024-9, which, well, why don't I open it by saying, let's discuss as a council if we're more inclined to consider the 100% for the merit pools, or if we're more inclined to consider these two different hiring and retention tools that Shannon suggested. And I'll leave the floor open for someone to make a motion for which avenue that they would like to consider, if any.
For the hire on bonus, how's that gonna affect our budget if we go that route versus the 100%?
I think the hiring bonus is one of those that we don't have a dollar amount for because we, right now, I think we'll be hiring one in the immediate future. They're filling one open position, so that would be a $2,500 immediate impact. So how much that would cost over time, it will be more expensive the higher turnover is.
And this would include pay for years of service. So if the new hire comes in with 10 years of service elsewhere, they would be entitled to that matrix pay. So that's included in there.
Can you explain that again, what you just said?
Yeah, so the ordinance includes credit for years of service for an officer who may have been providing law enforcement services at another department, another sheriff's office, or another law enforcement agency for whatever period of time. So if the new hire comes in with 10 years of service, then they will fall into the 10 years matrix pay. So, and that's clearly, I think, lined out in the ordinance, I believe. One thing that I don't see in the ordinance that we did discuss, and Joel, this is for you, we discussed if an officer is hired using this tool, can we claw those dollars back if they leave within a certain period of time? So I don't see that in the ordinance. Was that given any thought, or would that need to be a separate agreement with that individual, or how would that work? And you're gonna have to use your mic because we've got folks online. What's your recommendation? Should it be included in the ordinance, or maybe something that refers to a contractual agreement?
You can certainly add that, so fine to have it. And the way the hiring bonus is earned upon completion of field days. They're going to be here for a certain period of time. You
Right.
Get that. Maybe get that.
I'm less worried about that.
In this particular instance, probably would be more burdensome for instance, the pay for specialized training. So I guess my recommendation would be against it.
It's hard to hear, Joel.
Yeah, we're gonna need you to use your mic. They can't hear you.
Yeah, the additional matrix pay that anyone would get would be paid as part of the officer's regular paycheck. So
Yeah, I'm not
it's
concerned about that as much
broken
as
into, so the bonus.
the
yeah.
bonus being able to claw that back if they do not stay for a predetermined. I mean, we were given an example of a 3-year officer leaving
Sure.
and
I mean, I guess my recommendation might be to have the hiring bonus paid at a later date then, because it's typically easy to not make the payment in the first instance than to try to recoup it at some later date.
Could we pay it in separate
You could pay it in separate
Installments.
installments
if we wanted
over a
to?
period of time, certainly.
So could it be like 750 year one, 750 year two, 1,000 if year three, something like that?
That would certainly be legal to do that.
We did discuss that 2 weeks ago at our meeting. I was hoping that would be in there, providing it was legal. And I thought other departments that I'd heard about or read about had done something, a stipulation of you have to stay with the department because you're expending this kind of training, like 3 years as an example, or otherwise you lose all or a portion of it. I would like to see something like that in here as a motivation to stay, in addition to the motivation of the raise we're talking about and the matrix.
I like that idea.
Shannon, this was your initial thought. Do you have a preference over having to pay back, or is there any advantage you're thinking either way? I mean,
I'm not opposed either way. It's a tool and the tool was to attract and retain. I'm a little concerned that we wouldn't be able to retain beyond 3 years. But
Well, it could be 500 for 5 years, but that's
Good.
not a great motivation, I don't think.
the 2,500 up front definitely is a tool and is attractive to bring somebody here. If they know they have to stay for 5 years. And my hope was to get them to stay until they started earning matrix pay. And please, Captain Pierce.
Just for discussion, if Joel agrees, I think doing a contract with each individual officer based on the numbers you put in the ordinance. Because a lot of times, if we're hiring a 22, 23-year-old kid, they're not gonna dig through our ordinances and we'll tell them, but it'd be nice to have it spelled out right in front of them. When we sign you up this day, this is how your bonus is paid. If you don't, this is what you're paying back. Sign, date it, so there's no question to anybody what's going on. If Joel's okay with doing it as a contract,
That's certainly legal.
based on the ordinance.
You could do that. I mean, you run into, I mean, the only, I guess, practical issue you run into is if somebody moves to Florida or California or someplace, then it may be difficult to ever collect it.
It would be no matter if it was an ordinance or contract though.
Yeah, and so that's kind of why I said maybe withholding pay until they've earned it might be the practical aspect.
And there would be steps that new officers take, whether it's completing their FTO, completing the academy, completing their years of like 1, 2, or 3 of service, where you could look at saying that these critical points is where we're going to provide them with a little bit of bonus based on, hey, they made it through the academy, that's 640 hours of hard work. They got their first year in, they got their second year, things like that. But I think just doing it as a contract with each officer as they come through would be a lot better and cleaner.
That's how I envisioned it, but I don't know if this ordinance needs to reference the contract or anything like that. I envisioned it being a one-time payment with a certain number of years that they need to stay, and I was hoping for 5. And if they leave before 5, then they've got to pay it back.
And then you just prorate it based on however many months of service they got out of your 5,000. So when I hired in Newcastle or anywhere else, that's what it was. So if I made it to 4 years, I wasn't paying the whole 2,500 for your example back.
Right.
You would basically just say, okay, you completed 3 or 4/5 of your service, so this is what you need to return to us as far as your.
I'm not
career goes.
opposed to that.
So.
Do you think we need to reference anything like that in the ordinance?
You probably
Joel?
should. I mean, at the end of paragraph 1, you should probably add some language that persons receiving the bonus payment will be required to repay it pursuant to the terms of a contract if the employee doesn't complete X number of years of service.
Okay,
However long you want to make that duration for term of service. I think if you added that to the end of paragraph 1, that language.
I'd like 5 years that Shannon mentioned to get to the matrix. I think that's probably a good idea.
I agree.
And whether that's 500 or a callback, it sounds like what Matt said is going to be cleaner legally to put that on section 1 than it is the clawback.
So we've talked about an amendment to this ordinance, which details the 2,500 upfront and would need to be paid back appropriately if they leave before a 5-year period of time. Is that a good summary? Okay.
So is that going to be prorated, like 500 a year, or is it all or nothing?
paid up front, and then what they have to pay back would be prorated by year if they leave.
Okay, by year, not year and month. Yeah, that'd be simpler, but year by year. So that would be 500.
Right. I'll make the motion to adopt that ordinance 2024-9 with that specific amendment and Joel developing that contract.
I'll second.
A motion by Shannon, a second by Betsy. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, that motion passes 6-0. And we're gonna then move to ordinance number 2024-10, which is an ordinance establishing residency pay for merit deputy sheriffs. And this was another hiring and retention tool that we discussed, which would incentivize our deputies to live in the county to increase police presence in the county. Is there any discussion or move to action on this ordinance? And for those in the audience, this would be a $2,500 annual pay incentive to live in the county.
I assume this is legal, or Joel wouldn't have written this up.
Yeah, it is legal to offer incentive pay for residency.
Okay. Has anybody figured out, I heard a number that was shared at our last meeting, but I'd like to know what this would cost total.
Total cost
Um,
right now, I'm sorry, Susan, $47,500 total. We have, I'm going by memory, but I want to say 7 officers that live outside the county.
Well, I'm worried about the total cost of everything budget wise. I think that's a high amount, but that's what's written. I have concerns with the overall cost of everything we're doing, but that can come up in discussion after a motion's made.
Well, I'll make the motion to adopt it. Beginning November 2025, there is a blank in there for a start date. This would be paid in November 2025.
I guess I'm not against any of it. I definitely want to get our deputies paid and, having incentives for them to live in county, and hiring, I think those are really good things, but I'm also interested in getting them to 100% of mid-range. And I feel like it's doing all of it's going to be kind of expensive. And I don't have a sense of what that is going to cost overall.
Yeah, so I think it circles us back to if our focus will be to use these hiring incentives or move our deputies or our merit pools to 100%, or not either of those. So,
Well, it sounds like the cost is going to be similar for those two.
the cost is similar.
Is the 52,606 from my notes, is that still the difference of 97 to 100%?
I did not check it.
I think it is. And the benefit, as far as I'm concerned, to doing it this way is this does not change year over year. It's there, it's one, it does not increase, it does not go up. And this is an incentive to get our officers closer to where our residents are. It will provide an incentive to keep those vehicles from driving out of the county. I think there's a lot of benefits to doing it this way.
I agree with the statements you just made. I think the reason people, especially law enforcement, are allowed take-home vehicles is visibility and presence of law enforcement in and around the community. I think that's obviously a goal of law enforcement, is visibility and presence. I think people are less likely to do crimes if a police car or a sheriff car or any law enforcement is in the neighborhood. If that's in the county, I think that betters the prospect for Henry County as far as law enforcement presence or closeness to possible crime or needs, as 911 is called. So I agree. I think with the $2,500 matrix we passed last year, the $25 here and the $2,500 signing bonus, it just all adds up to cha-ching to me. If everything else were about to pass, but again, you made a motion, I think, and if it wasn't seconded, I jumped to the discussion, and for that I apologize.
I also agree that this is a good retention tool, and I know that previously, in years past, it was a rule of many departments that deputies had to live in county, and now that's not possible to do because it's so hard to get individuals. But I think that this is a good way to try to move back to that and increase police presence. And so I also support this. I won't second it for the chair, but I do support this. Has the motion died on the floor? Or is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there other discussion?
I think we need to discuss the ramifications of both 100% and the retention in-county bonus. Just thinking about where our reserves are right now. Kenan, did you say?
No, I was just going to say, I can't in good conscience, again, knowing what all this is going to cost in our 2025 budget, vote for both. It's going to have to be either or. And I think that's the way Shannon spelled it out and presented it a few weeks ago. So if I were to vote for this, and we already voted for one, I couldn't in good conscience vote for the 100% as well. So it's kind of circling around to what like Betsy said. So it's kind of a conundrum.
Right.
It
I think
is a
it's one or
conundrum.
the other. Sorry, Betsy.
Oh, sorry. I mean, the way I look at it, the hiring bonus, that's great, but that only applies to new hires. This living in county is nice. I think it would be more than 3%, obviously. But if somebody's not living in county, and they can't move into the county and they're an experienced deputy, if we don't pass 100%, they get none of these perks. I mean, it seems like it's not going to, we run the risk of experience leaving, and there's no incentive for them if they don't live in county, if we don't pass 100%.
So we have a motion and a second, and we're still in discussion. Is that right, Madam
Yeah,
Chair?
I'd feel more comfortable if I knew that we had returning revenue each year to take care of these things. Because, if we were at the 0.2% from the public safety lit increase, I think we'd have a little bit more cushion to cover both. But, just looking into the future, it gives me concern with where we are from an overall budget standpoint with the amount of revenue we currently have right now.
I'm concerned with what I'm hearing, and I'm talking about more than tea leaves reading. I'm hearing and reading the State House, the election's going to some of Senator Braun's proposals are going to potentially give us less money than what we were hoping for, or maybe even projected. And I know Shannon was pretty picky with what he forecasted out, but some of what I'm hearing couldn't possibly be forecasted out. I could not in good conscience vote for both of those. I'm getting back to what, to me, it's an either or. We're really risking some potential unknowns 2, 3, 4 years out that I feel very uncomfortable with. So to me, it's either or, but I know there's a motion on the floor.
Ken and I hear you, and I'm hearing the same things from the State House, and it concerns me for future iterations of the council and local government in general and how we're funded by the state. I guess I'm comfortable with the 100% because the sheriff has said that he would forego whatever that amount of money is out of his vehicle line item to cover that increase. So to me, it's not us having to find more money, it's him finding it in his budget. I also, it freaks me out to hear about the experienced deputies leaving that have left. The experience the experience they carry is, you can't measure it, but it's significant. And also, it's occurred to me that this is an issue of morale as well. I've had a few deputies reach out after the meeting and our last meeting and just thank me and say, it really does matter. It's a statement, getting to 100% of mid-range according to WIS. So, sorry if you can hear barking dogs. Yeah, to me, if a sheriff can cover it in his own budget, I feel okay about that.
I'd like to say two things. One, I agree, it's either or. We can't do both of these. And the other thing is, taking the money out of the vehicle line item is just swapping one problem for another. Vehicles are still an issue, have been an issue, and will continue to be an issue. And if we don't build a rotation plan and fund a rotation plan to keep the vehicles where they should be or close as we can get, the dollars we have in there in the budget right now are not full development of a complete rotation plan. It's a better option than we've had in years past, but cutting that out of there to get to 100% is, in my mind, swapping one problem for another.
Your
So
point's well taken, Shannon.
That's why I like the residency stipend for the reasons I said before.
I guess, again, my concern is the deputies who don't live in county and won't move to county. They're already hired, so there's not going to be a bonus for them. And then if it's not possible for them to move in the county, they're getting nothing. So I do agree with the incentives. I think they're great, but we're going to have employees who are potentially disgruntled because they're not getting any of these perks.
I have
I
a
would,
comment. Oh, go ahead, Kenan.
I was just going to say, I would hope the retention issue and people leaving elsewhere would be greatly reduced by a roughly $10,000 raise. I can't help but think it's going to give our deputies being much more competitive than what they were this year. But especially 6 years ago when they were making low 40s. This would be close to 60. I would hope the retention would be greater because of that. If indeed salary is the a principal concern, I think morale has to be a concern. Being praised and acknowledged for work done, potentially putting their lives on the line and being appreciated. I know Betsy brought up last meeting the harassment that law enforcement takes in certain areas of the country. Thank goodness that's not the case here. I think law enforcement is universally looked upon very favorably. I've never talked to someone in Henry County that looked down upon law enforcement like you see on TV, which is despicable. So I'm hoping the retention will be greatly enhanced with the nearly $10,000 raise, plus some of these things we're talking about, whether it's the signing bonus or the living in county bonus. But I will echo what Shannon said. Financially, we cannot do both. But again, I know there's a motion and a second on the table. I'd like to see us vote on that so we can move on either to one of the other ordinances.
Thank you, Kenan. I would personally like to see one of these techniques used, either the 100% to improve overall retention or this in-county pay. I think that both make us more competitive. I'd like to see one of them go through. Is it inappropriate to hear from Corey at this time since there's a motion on the floor? Okay, you're welcome.
Is Mike?
I should know how to do that by now. Corey Criswell, State Representative, represent each and one of you in the room and via Zoom. And I appreciate what you guys do, and I definitely appreciate what these guys do in the back corner. And they for sure need a raise, and as well as every other county employee here. Kenan kind of mentioned it, and that was one I figured would get brought up as I would say more than likely our next governor, Senator Braun, has produced a property tax plan. And I will say first and foremost, that plan will not get passed as is. I can assure you that. But there will be I wanted to stand here today in front of you. There will be a property tax bill passed in 2025. And Tom's seen it for 26 years right over here in my back. And I've seen it for 2. When a property tax, maybe I'll hold it and it might be better. When a property tax bill's passed, I have no idea why I'm echoing.
One second. Thank you, Bobby.
But like I was saying, when a property bill is passed at the State House, it usually is on the backs of you folks sitting in front of me. There's some people there. He was one of the most knowledgeable ones of the 150 people in the General Assembly when it came to local government issues, and knew how it worked. And he can probably verify everything I'm about to say, that it's usually on the backs of you. And there is a handful of us that fight for local governments and want you to be well financed, and you guys be able to spend money how you want to spend it. So the 97%, as I believe is on the budget, I think it's well deserved for all county employees. But I just wanted to kind of verify what Kenan said. There will be a bill passed this session, and I just don't know how much you guys decide to do in 3, 5, 6 years, what that's going to look like in a Senator Braun's being at the helm there at the State House. Because as you guys have seen, it's been publicized and people talked about what his plan does, and it's shifting one amount of money to the other. That's kind of what it's doing. Now, like I said, his plan isn't gonna get passed as is. I can already tell you that, but there will be something passed. And just my suggestion to you all, stay connected, get with AIM, get with whoever, your guys' lobbyist at the State House, make sure you're engaged in this process. Text me anytime, please, what you guys are hearing in your email chains and so on and so forth, what's going on, and keep me up to date. It helps for sure, and it gets me connect who I need to go see right off the bat. So I just wanted to say, Kenan brought up the property tax. It is gonna be something, and I wanted to be here today in front of you and say there will be something passed. I would be absolutely shocked if nothing was passed. I would say it'll probably be one of his top priorities from the governor, and I know he can't technically do anything on his own, but they have a lot of say-so. And like I said, these gentlemen and everybody that works in the county need to be well paid. And I just kind of wanted to say that about the property tax standpoint. And I'm open if you guys have anything to me.
Gut instinct, best case scenario, worst case scenario, just hypothetically with what you're hearing right now.
I would say worst case is what was proposed. Best case would be, there's gonna be a cut of some sort, but I wouldn't say, I'm not gonna say a percentage wise, but a minimal is best case. And as it's proposed right now is not minimal.
Traditionally, what we've seen at the State House is they take action to reduce taxes, do better for the taxpayer, and then provide local governments with whatever opportunity they can for us to be the bad guy. And we've been seeing that since late 2000s and I'm not been doing this a long time, but
Yep.
that's my research. Maybe it been happening before that. I don't know. Do you suspect that cutting revenues to local governments, they know that that's going to have an impact to every local government in the state? They're going to have to provide some ability for local government to be able to make up for any shortfall.
Like,
If they didn't, we would have been bankrupt by now. And we would be in the future if we didn't have a way to make up the difference. So sorry, I interrupted your answer.
oh,
to your
you're good.
question.
I know, I agree that from my short time being there, that's kind of their easy way out is to, let's do something there. And then you guys have to do something what you did a couple weeks ago when I was here. So no, for sure. Then definitely I hear your concern, and there's people there that voice your concern, but we also have other mega counties that they don't really care what rural Indiana has to say.
Right. It's double-edged sword, right? They give us the ability to seal our own fate. And the good news is that provides more local control. So, like I said, double-edged sword.
I think
I
it
appreciate the information.
it shows again the shift from the state to shift taxes from property owners to workers. And so I think, like Shannon's saying, if we do see property tax revenue decrease, that's going to represent the state's position that taxes should be paid more by workers, and then might come out for workers and increased income taxes is probably the trend that many of us have seen. If property taxes are lowered, then income taxes will probably go up, which is no fun, but understood. Yeah.
So it's back to our option the state gives us is raise local taxes, local income taxes, which we did. It's a never ending vicious cycle. The state, I don't know if it's a matter of wanting to look good, we cut your taxes, but the net result is for us to function, the only option the state gives us is to raise locally. And so the net is, there is not a total net reduction in anyone's taxes. And in fact, our local is going to pay a little bit more. And the state's going to go on your colleagues are going to say, we cut your taxes. The governor is going to say, we cut your taxes. But people want services. I mean, they want fire and law enforcement and 911 and EMS, and the options the state gives us is local income taxes, as you alluded to a few weeks ago.
For those of us who own houses and are employed, it may be relatively equal over time. And then for people who are done with the working period of their life and they're retired, this is a benefit to them because they're less likely to lose their home. For people who don't own homes and are working, then they're taking on more of the burden. But it is the same amount of, unless the things we actually pay for are reduced, it's just how we get tax money together over time. So I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah,
No problem. I just wanted to be here to kind of be face to face in
right.
front of you guys. And I support the pay raise. I think it's great for our employees in the county. And then just wanted to say it to you guys face to face. And like I said, this next session, make sure we're engaged and have my phone number, text, call, whatever you need to do.
Thank you.
Susan,
Thank you, Corey.
No problem.
So-
Who said?
could we
something?
hear from, could we hear from Tom? It looks like he's coming up.
Sure, absolutely.
28 years, he may have some wisdom to impart as well.
Well, I don't know about thank you for allowing me to come today. You know, I was just thinking I was a 20-year employee of this county, and I appreciate what you're doing for the employees. It was a pretty good gig. We didn't have the 4-day work week when I worked here, but we did have the 2 weeks vacation and the 2 weeks paid holidays. So I enjoyed my time here. To echo on what Corey was saying, there's a couple other things that concern me about what the General Assembly may do. One thing the Supreme Court did a couple of weeks ago, and they ruled on the 1 acre homestead credit. Well, now I have 1 acre. Right now I'm allowed a house and an outbuilding. Under this new ruling, excuse me, I have 5 acres and I got 7 buildings on that. They're going to qualify. So that's going to it's going to work with your assessed valuation, affect your assessed valuation, which could lower your revenue quite a bit. And then the other thing is not knowing what the General Assembly is going to do. If you were at the GOP club a couple of weeks ago, you heard the candidate for lieutenant governor say that he thought the locals were building Taj Mahals and were living within their means, and you're going to have to cut spending. And that's how they think. I haven't had a chance to look at Jennifer McCormick's plan, but the Republican plan is going to balance it on the back of the locals. And my concern is, and I don't have a problem with the pay raises either. My concern is whether you're going to be able to sustain them down the road. So if I was in your position and I voted yes, I'd say with the understanding that next year, if our revenue goes down, we may have to do some rescinding. And then also the business property tax that they addressed, they've been wanting to phase that out. It started out at 10%, 20%. That's your money. That's not the state's money. I kept trying to point that out when I was out there. And they go, well, Tom, it just affects about $100,000 for Henry County. Yeah, but how many police cars is that? How many employees? That's 10 employees raises. So that's something you need to talk to them about also is that tax that they're wanting to eliminate. So I just want to add my 2 cents worth. And I appreciate the job you all do. It's a thankless job, but somebody has to do it. Kenneth, any?
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank
We
you.
appreciate it. I know that when we sat here a few weeks ago and I voted to raise our local income taxes significantly, my primary reason for doing that was to pay our employees what I feel like is a fair wage. And so that really was my motivation for doing this tax increase. So I feel like with the tax increase, we can do the 97%. I also think that we can incorporate these 2 changes that we are making to the department heads and chief deputies, and also what we're considering for our merit pools. I think those are things that we have raised taxes sufficiently to cover. So I would like to see one of these approaches taken for the merit pools. We have a motion and a second on the floor to pass this ordinance. to do additional compensation of $2,500 a year for our merit pools who live in the county. And all those in favor, if there's no other discussion from the council?
This was effective November 2025, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I
Go ahead.
guess, sorry, go ahead, Kenan.
No, that's fine. I was gonna, but just getting that clarification.
If I recall correctly, the sheriff said that of the options, he would rather see them get to 100% than have this bonus. So if we have to pick one, which I'd be inclined to go in that direction.
I'd like to ask the sheriff to come give his opinion.
Would you like to?
So there are pros and cons to both. I do like the idea of our officers living in our county. You know, if that would take care of getting more officers here, that's better for many reasons, some that we've already talked about, and there's other reasons that it's good. So, I'm okay with either one. What I don't want to happen by some kind of error here is both of them fall aside. So we are happy with the raises. I'm happy for all county employees. And so in regard to this specific matter, I'm good with either one. And like I said, there's a lot of pros and cons to both, and I won't go into really any of them. So I'm going to be happy either way. I would be doubly happy to get both. So I guess I'll just I'll leave it.
We
at
know that
So,
about
yeah.
you. Okay, thanks, Sheriff. Any other discussion from the council or? All righty.
Yeah, my last thought is just with the elections coming up, not knowing exactly what the interest rates are going to do, which have helped us build our reserves. I just feel like it's a time to be very conservative where we are and see exactly what transpires. Because I think by next, into next May, we would know where things are, where they stand, what's shaken out at the State House. And nothing says we couldn't revisit all of this again at that point in time. I just think that it's worth considering that, knowing that there's a lot that can be disruptive to the natural course of our incoming money right now, based on what we've heard and what we know is likely to happen with interest rates going forward. So that's my last 2 cents.
I concur with what he said. And I think if we're conservative now, we're less likely to rescind, as Tom said.
I think it would be easier to be conservative now than to have to worry about rescinding something later and making everything even worse.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Susan.
No, go ahead, Betsy.
I was going to say, I appreciate the clarification from the sheriff, and I appreciate just the wisdom being shared about being conservative and looking towards the future, knowing that things are going to shift in ways we don't know. So I just want to say I appreciate that information.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. And all those in favor of this $2,500 for in-county pay for merit pools, Shannon, can you tell us your vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Betsy?
Aye.
Kenan?
Aye.
So we have a tied vote.
No, it's 4-2.
I thought he said aye. You say nay?
Kenan.
Kenan, did you say nay?
No, I said aye.
Oh, it's 4-2. Okay, very good. Motion passes 4-2. Okay. And do we have a motion to leave the merit polls at 97% because of the other two hiring and retention tools, or to consider the 100%?
I make a motion that we do the first of what you said, which I think was leave them at 97%, given we passed the other two.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, motion passes 6-0. And we are now going to consider the 2024 salary ordinance. And this ordinance sets all wages for all employees effective September 1. And this will reflect a 97% of the WIS market, average market value provided to us, with one exception, which is that our department heads will be set to $65,173, and our chief deputies will be set to $58,656 for several reasons, to improve kind of the pay structure, to make sure that individuals heading departments are making more than the people that they're managing.
Yeah.
Go
Susan,
ahead.
not all department heads, just elected department heads is the,
Thank you. Important.
and I would like to make one additional comment. Not all positions would be 97% because some were already paid above the 97%. So there are some that are not going to change, a few.
Thank you for both of those corrections. So elected department heads, that clarification, and for those individuals already making over 97% of the average market, they will continue at their same rate of pay. They will not be reduced to 97%. Are there any other clarifications from what I just stated?
I would like to make one clarification that chief deputies are included in the change for September 1st. Elected department heads cannot change till January 1.
Thank you. Any other clarification? We want to make sure it's correct.
Also, Susan, we voted for the council not to get any, that might have been included in the 97% comment. There's one other position that also we brought in above WIS 97%, and you're saying that stays stationary. I know we had discussions during the last several hearings that no one should get no raise except the council. I take it that that never got forwarded in these salary ordinances.
Can you state that again, Kenan?
There's one position we brought in order to bring it in at the insistence of numerous elected officials, because we were out of without an important position. We brought in higher. You alluded to that they would get no raise. I thought the only entity not getting any raise was the county council. So I take it, I mentioned in the hearings that I thought that everyone should get at least $1,000 raise or something like that. But I take it, like, for example, the GIS person that was brought in higher in order to get someone in that important position. I take it the salary ordinance that we're voting on kept that position the same with no raise at all. Is that correct?
That's correct. Kenan, when I think about this first wage setting here in September, in my mind, it's a mid-year raise. It's to correct our average market value for everybody. What would you think about considering what you're saying for the first of the year, or
that would be fine. I just would hate for anyone other than the council to get
nothing?
no raise.
Did we ever finish that conversation during budget? I don't think we finished that conversation.
No, first of the year would be fine, because I know the elected officials, because of state law, will not get a raise until January 1. If we want to entertain that discussion, then that's fine with me.
I know we had also said, though, that we didn't want to change wages twice, so I think we never finished that conversation. We maybe need to finish it now.
I don't think anyone should get less than $1,000 raise. I mean, it's a slap in the face. Otherwise, it's not to us, but it would be to someone like that. Um,
There's 4 positions besides council that wouldn't get raises. 3
what are they?
keeper and GIS administrator.
Yeah, I know the groundskeepers, Casey was okay with that, but it's kind of up to the park board if they're okay with that. But they're on a different tax rate. We've kind of given a lot of leeway to Angela with a different tax rate and the extra money coming in from the state. We have 4 departments like that.
So
But
our-
GIS is under the general fund.
We
so-
also have the probate commissioner, what she's called Lynn.
Thank you, Stephanie. So our options are to leave them as is because that's their, WIS 97%, or they're over the WIS 97%, or to do some type of small raise as just a show of gratitude for their service, like 1,000.
Well, yeah, I think so. Most people are getting, I think I figured out between a 10 and almost 20% raise with WIS. I would hope that they would get at least something, whether it's 1,000 or I don't know.
So what would we do next year then, when we
I don't know.
adjust to average market and there's possibly
I think
over, hopefully
eventually,
not? I mean, hopefully they
I
would.
think eventually over 5 years, giving them a modicum raise would get them to whatever's decided, 97% of WIS or whatever it is,
Angela's
over
gonna say-
time. Well, I brought up the health department, so I'm sure I'm going to hear about it.
You've got the solution. Let's hear it.
Yes,
Welcome,
hear it.
Angela.
It's not a solution per se, but I know that I am not the only department head that has looked at the council and the commissioners in the last several years and said, why are you paying Wagner, Urban, and Shealy? Why did we just pay them $40,000 to do a top-down review and not go with what they say? I do know that there in my department has one of these individuals who has gotten brought on in the latter half of the year and a half. And because of the raises that have ensued the last several years, thank you to you all, but we've been able to put them closer to that market rate. So if you take somebody who's at 97% or 100% and we push them over, we're still going to have that inequity. And then when you all remove yourselves from office because, your term is up or whatever, the next people that are going to come in are going to have the same headache that we have had for years of everybody doing their own thing. Hence the email that I sent out and said, if you're a part-time person and you're doing the same thing as your full-time counterpart, why wouldn't you get the raise to be at the same, on the hour? To even leave that up to the department heads, thank you for the consideration, but no, thank you. You paid $40,000. Was it 40,000? I want to make sure I get that right. Isn't that what that cost us?
Yes, 42.
$40,000 for WIS to do this. So if we're going to do it, let's do it. Let's get every PAT 3 at a whatever equal. I mean, that was the whole point. Was it not? Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, I say we're 98% following WIS. We could hire a robot if we just put WIS into a computer and say, this is what you're getting. I think there are exceptions to every rule, and I think we're following it very closely. And I don't think we're picking winners and losers. I think this is the best 42,000 probably the county ever spent. I appreciate Shannon suggesting it. We're 10 times better off than we were 5 years ago. I just feel badly for those. My gut was to give them like a 2% raise, and in 5 years they'll be at WIS. But to give them nothing, I just don't feel great about it. But that's my own personal opinion, and I'm 14.3% of the council.
Shannon, do you have any experience with this type of situation? You're,
I do, and I have had employees that are in the exact same position. Some of these are our own, well, they're all our own doing, but some of them are because of the brackets that we had made inside of the job classifications. And we took entirely too long to reconfigure those and assign points properly and develop this the way it should be. So having those inequities, to only have 5 really doesn't shock me a lot. That just means that the wages that, the increases that we've given the last 2 years have pushed them at or above where they should be. And if we continue to push them higher, we're going to have difficulties. In my experience, in the utility world, if somebody is above their midpoint when raises like this are given, they are frozen until the wage catches up with them. And we can, and I say the wage catches up with them because every classification changes at a different rate. And so it depends on which position that they're in. And we have them, we have 5, you said, Stephanie, and they're probably in 5 different categories, right? 5 different classifications, or at least 4. Okay. Okay, so they're in 3.
do you happen to know, Stephanie, if any of them were over average market, 100%?
The GIS is.
Okay. I was just thinking it may just take 1 year of frozen wages for them to.
The
fit.
GIS current wages is 68,250, and external midpoint is 63,438. So that would, providing a raise for that GIS person, not that that person is not worth every penny she's paid, but that would be exacerbating a problem.
Kyle or Mike or Betsy?
I kind of agree with Ken in that I think it's going to create more problems down the road for us.
I can see all sides of this, so I'm not sure where I'm leaning at this point. Like I don't want to disrupt morale of any county employee, but also if they're if they're ahead of this, then they've already been benefiting.
Right, they've already been compensated beyond what our other employees have been for a longer period of time. So not continuing that on, I think, is probably my preference also. I mean, we could consider doing like a $500 stipend for 1 year or 2 years, but I'm not inclined to think that we have to do that.
I don't have the math in front of me, but another idea would be a phased solution where some of these positions, there's no comparables essentially to what they are doing. There's not another role like that in the county government where we could say, let's do 2% for 5 years, and then that will allow the other employee on equal footing catch up, and then they'll be equal, so that they're getting an equal amount, or at least getting a raise as a gesture of gratitude, not the slap in the face that some have termed it, where they get something, but it doesn't push them above, and over time it phases out that gap. I just don't think that's those employees that we have, those 5, they're not in a situation where we could phase the gap out. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Yeah. So what I think you're saying is are you saying we could do a small increase and that you're thinking that they're market rate would increase faster than that? Are you saying that?
Exactly. You do the small raise as a thank you, knowing that they're above what the market rate is. So that then eventually, like I said, I don't have data in front of me, but over 3 or 5 years, the market rate catches up to where they are. And then at that point, they can get back onto the regular schedule, if you will.
So I'll leave the floor open for a motion. If no one's ready to make a motion, I'm curious how far off they are in dollars. Is it $1,000? Is it, but
What category is GIS in the WIS report? I
over
mean,
97% or over market?
No,
Over
I
market,
mean,
they're only over $100 from the 100% of mid-market. The,
I thought they were $100 over the 97%.
We did 97%, that took a decrease in it.
what position are you
yeah, so
referring
over the
to? It
97%, sorry.
It's an LTCA. And,
So the 97% would have took them to 36,408. They currently get paid 36,504.
yeah, so we're talking less than $100
Yeah.
for that particular one.
we
And
talking groundskeepers?
Yeah, the 3
Okay.
full-time employees out there. And then the other was, for the, probate commissioner for the courts, 97% would have put her at 49,071, and she currently makes 49,875. So about $800.
And the other one is the GIS that I just gave you.
That was around 4,000, yeah.
But again, the range of most of the raises I think are between 10 and 18%. Probably 10 to 12 is closer to the average. Could we do something like a 2%, and cap it off at 97%? And I realize a 2% would get some of these probably there in a year or two. GIS at 2% probably would be more like 5 years, but cap everybody off at 97% over time. But like I said, most people are getting at least a 10% raise with few exceptions.
I feel like if we did a percent, especially for the GIS position, that's gonna exacerbate this problem. I think doing
amount?
$500, like,
Well, you're right, because 68,000, 2% is going to be a lot more than
I think-
2% at 40,000.
yeah. So if we did
Well,
do anything, I would be inclined to do $500 a year
I-
until they catch up.
Reach. Yeah,
I don't know.
okay. I think that's fair. I think eventually we cap everybody at 97 or whatever the decision is made. I'll make a motion of $300 until they reach 97%. Which for some will be a year or two, and for some might be 5 or 6.
So there's a motion by Kennan to do a $300 salary increase for those. I'm so sorry. There's a motion by Kennan to do a $300 a year salary increase until those individuals hit 97%. Is there a second?
Is that for everybody or just the 5 that are behind?
Just
5
the that are
exceptions.
currently over Market, currently over 97%.
And we're still excluding ourselves, right?
Yes,
Yes.
that would be my motion. I think we decided we get nothing.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah. So that, go ahead, Joel.
The only thing I want to point out is each year you're going to have to adopt a new salary ordinance. So certainly saying you're going to do this, I mean, you're going to have to continue to do it year per year with each ordinance. And like with respect to this ordinance is passing a mid-year increase here in the next month or so, you're going to be looking at the same thing for 2025. So just to keep that in mind, that if you're saying it now, you need to ensure that you're building it into future salary ordinances.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah. That's not that insurmountable for 5 employees out of 230, is it?
I'm sorry, I was distracted by my phone, but was there a second?
Does anybody have an alternate plan? I mean, Ken's just throwing a solution out here and I'm not opposed to it. Does anybody else have a strong opinion?
So I'm inclined to either leave it alone or do like 500. 300 seems a little low, but I would vote for either 500 or I would leave it alone and let it resolve over time.
I'll rescind my motion for lack of second.
I'll make the motion for that same proposal at $500.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 6-0. Thank you for your patience while we talked through that. So this is all within still the discussion of ordinance 2024-8, which is the 2024 salary ordinance. And again, that ordinance includes individuals at 97%. With this now exception for those who were currently over 97%, they'll now receive a $500 increase this year. Also the modification for department heads and chief deputies. Any other clarification? Is there a motion to pass this salary ordinance?
I'll move to pass the salary ordinance.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion passes 6-0 to pass the 2024 salary ordinance as proposed. And that brings us to the end of our itinerary. Is there any other business from the council?
Yeah, I want to share with everybody that the projections for the income tax revenue that I did showed an increase in income tax revenue of $1.634 million, $1,634,250. That included an average increase in the lit distributions of 4.82%. We have seen that jump up over 30%, but that was the average over 5 years. And then it also was a negative 26.12% reduction in supplemental lit, because we believe that the supplemental lit will continue to go down. So that $1.6 million covers the raises that we just did.
Thank you, Shannon.
Good to hear. I've got a couple of things, Susan, if you'd indulge me.
Of course.
Bobby Plummer and I are still part of the 5-member board scoring the Ready 2. Our assignment over the next, 22nd, 8 days by the 30th is to go over approximately 60 ready projects and score them, plus a sundry LEI. Henry County submitted 5 ready and 3 LEI projects, but some counties like Delaware submitted like 11 ready 2 and 4 or 5 LEIs. So not everybody followed the 5. Also, State Board of Account exit interview is next Tuesday, 9 a.m. at Debbie's office. David Terrell's speaking next Tuesday, 5:30 to 8, about the 4-H Center at the Smith Building. Next council meeting is on Wednesday, 9/11 at 4:30. AIC, I know I'm going. I think Shannon may be going. I don't know. September 24th and 25th. And we need to decide sometime if we're going to have a council work session on September 26th. I think when we set the calendar, that was the last one we set, because I think we still have to approve, a budget coming up in the next, month.
Thank you, Kenan. Any other business from the council? Is there anything that anyone in the audience would like to address the council regarding? We appreciate everyone coming. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.